Hi, this is Rowena Riddle. Dr. Lim and Rachel Lim are still out of the country, so I am going to talk about purpose and destiny with my guest here, which is Paul Riddle, which
Great to be
is
here.
also my son. And when he was 18, I thought this was interesting. He had an opportunity to do illustrations for a children's book. It's a book called When I Ordered You by Deborah Love Bradshaw. He didn't just do the cover art, he did all of the illustrations that are inside of the book. He actually had this journey in there. So, Paul, if you could just briefly share with us your testimony on how this opportunity came about for you.
Yeah, so from a young age, I've always enjoyed art. It's just something where there's no limitations whenever I'm able to create, and there's no real complications. It's just something that you do. And I've always found that appealing. As far as this project just falling into my lap, it wasn't something I was seeking after, but it's really something that came to me because Miss Deborah and you were actually talking about a completely different topic.
Yeah.
And the subject of illustration just came up. And so she offered me the position, and I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And that's kind of how it happened in a nutshell.
So for other people who are your age, Paul is a second-year art student at a university. When other people are trying to figure things out for themselves and trying to figure out, gosh, what am I going to do when I graduate? What's going to be my major? How would you encourage someone who's trying to figure all that out?
Yeah, so there's a few really brief things I want to touch on, and this isn't an exhaustive list of do this and you will find your purpose.
Yeah,
but one thing is that your what is going to change oftentimes, and even if it doesn't, a lot of things can be added to your what. But what doesn't change is your who and your why. And it's so important that people realize that who you are is infinitely more important than what you do. In fact, what you do flows from who you are. And I remember when I was working on the project, I was so stressed out because the illustrations weren't meeting my standard and I wanted it to be excellent. But something that God told me is, hey, I'm not looking for a great artist, I want a good person. And even nowadays, we're realizing the fruit of people valuing talent over integrity and character, and it's hurt a lot of people. And nowadays, you know, we need to realize that who we are is going to be more impactful, and we need to get that right. Another thing I'd say really quick is a lot of times we're looking for our purpose, but it's kind of counterintuitive, but we need to be first off looking at what is God's purpose for my life. And so it's not so much about finding my purpose by trying to find my purpose, but finding my purpose by trying to find God and finding out more who He is and what does He have for my life. And I think something that's very important is that we look at His purpose in our life, but we also say, what is God's purpose in another person's life? You know, and partnering ourselves with God in whatever we can do to help other people. I think it's really great because Jesus modeled it the best. And when He was talking about serving, He says in Matthew 23:11, the greatest among you shall be your servant. And so I think something that'd be really great for people is to look at what is God's purpose for my life, but then also say, and look at the people around you and say, okay, God, what is your purpose for this other person? And what can I do to help them? You know, whether it's something massive or whether it's just something small and faithful, whether it's just an encouragement. I think that's something very important.
That's something we talked about before with servant leadership. So that's actually a very key thing, is to help someone with their dream, with their purpose. And in that you can kind of figure out your own. So I think we talked about different examples, like from the Bible with Joseph and Jesus and David, and just how God brought them from where they were at and
it's
how they
actually
had to.
Interesting because they all had a purpose from a very young age. I think two great examples, Joseph and David, because they were both called by God to be in positions of leadership. But before they took that on, they had to be prepared by being servants under leadership. And they weren't necessarily doing things that were very glamorous. Some of them had highlights, but they also had low points. But they were faithful in what God gave them, and they were faithful in serving the people around them. And I believe that ultimately when you are serving the purposes that God has given to other people, you're actually preparing yourself to be somebody who can then take on that responsibility of what God has given you. And it's something that will give you the correct integrity and character, and even the practical things that you need to do what He's called you to do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. We
No
will
problem.
return again probably in next week. And
Yeah.
so I pray for everybody who is seeking their purpose and their destiny, that as you seek God, God will fulfill the desires of your heart. So until next time, see ya. Bye.